Hi guys, and welcome back to the Black Country Man Cave. So over the last few weeks I've been having a massive tidy up in here. I've gotten rid of a lot of the clutter that we all hang on to. So I got rid of quite a lot of timber. So all under here was absolutely chock full of timber. I've now got space for my GoPro storage box. I've got rid of some tools that I wasn't using, sold all those, and I've also consolidated some of my stuff. So if I can show you these boxes down here, they are Stanley Fatmax boxes. So I've got some of those spare from work, and I've used them to consolidate all my electrical stuff because I do like working on my electrics, and make some space basically. Cleared off a lot of that shelf there. That one, sorry. Got rid of some of the junk off there. There's literally 2 bags worth of screws. Sold them. Just get them out of my way. I've got thousands, don't need them. So anyway, whilst I was doing this, I did notice just how dusty everything is. So if I show you down in this corner and all the way across there, it's just covered in dust. And most of it is actually from working over here on the main bench. And not from there. It blows all the way around the room, especially when I blow the room out with my blower, and it's not great. Don't want that on your lungs. So I have got a filter here. You can see it's behind the grey thing there. Yeah, so that is I think I got it from Rutland's. Waited till it was on offer, and basically that sucks the air in. And any dust that's actually suspended in the air, the stuff that you're breathing in, is not good for you. Sucks it in, filters it, blows out nice clean air, traps all that dust in the filter, and you clean that filter every now and again. I do have dust masks as well, and I do wear them when it's really dusty, but not good. I'd rather get the dust at source. So what I decided to do was make this. And it's an MFT style downdraft table. So MFT is a multifunction table, so all the holes that are here are incredibly precise for use with 20mm bench dogs, and allows you to do very, very precise cutting or setting up work when you want to offer 2 pieces of wood up at a perfect 90-degree angle, etc. So basically this video is going to be how I made this for free. Absolutely nothing spent on this whatsoever. Used up some scraps and some stuff that I've got lying around, and hopefully this will keep the dust down. So no more talking from me, let's get down to the table and I'll show you how I built it. See you in a second. Okay, so I've searched through my scraps bin and I found 3 pieces of MDF that are just about going to do what I need. So the first piece is going to be the 2 sides. The second piece will make the 2 ends, and the last piece will be the top. And I've also found this plate for my dust extractor that will go on the sides. I need all the side pieces and end pieces to be the same, so I'm setting up the guide on my circular saw to 150mm. I couldn't go any larger than 150mm, as the second board which I'm about to cut now is just about wide enough to get the 2 rips out of. With all those done, I'm now measuring up my top piece, and it's roughly 800 by 500. So I'm going to mark and cut the 2 sides first. And I'm really going to take my time to make sure these are absolutely smack on, so that I haven't got to spend ages trimming them and sanding them after. So now I'm going to grab a spare board that I've got and use that to try and get the work surface as flat as possible. And now I'm going to clamp each of the ends down quite firmly and take my time to make sure that they're absolutely flush with the outer edge, so that when I do my measurement in a second it'll be absolutely smack on. And I'm going to carefully trim each side piece so that it fits perfectly without pushing either of the sides out of position. Once I'm happy with the fit, I'm going to apply a liberal amount of PVA glue, push it into place and remove the excess. Originally I was going to clamp it and just decided to use the brad nailer instead. So I clamped a board on there just to get it flush, and then held the other one by hand. and then time for the next one. So I've clamped it again, make sure they're absolutely flush on the outside. Tap with the fist just to get it right. A couple of attempts to actually get it right, but I wanted to make sure it didn't push the boards out. So with that done, liberal amount of glue again, clean up the splodge, clamp with the board, and tack. This is a great technique if you want to get edges to sit absolutely perfectly level. Get a scrap board and clamp it over the edge so that it forces them level. And a quick check with the top piece to make sure that it's the right size and that it fits. And that it's actually sitting square. I have checked that this board is square, it is. And yeah, all good. This board here now is I think it's a 3mm piece of ply or 6mm, can't remember. And this is again left over from a project I've done on my van that I have filmed and still haven't edited and put out yet. But yeah, basically I'm just going to use this as the internal ramp, and I've worked out that the scrap piece on the end that I've just cut off is just big enough, once I've squared it up, to use for the ramp on the inside. So now I'm going to use the side that I've just cut as my straight side, marked a line all the way across, and I'm cutting that off. So then I've got to cut off the bottom end, so I'm just going to do that by hand. It's not perfectly straight, but it'll give me an idea because I'm very close to being too short. So now I'm marking up and I'm going to square that off. And I'm marking the inset of my the plate on my circular saw, which is I think it's 38mm or 40mm on that one, I can't remember. Clamped it and then run the saw across to try and get a nice straight edge. And then I'm trying it again. And then I've worked out my measurement now for the other edge. And I'm marking the inset again. Clamp the straight edge down and cut that off. And theoretically, that should be nice and square, but spoiler alert, I'll find out later that it's not. So the thing I'm attaching now is the dust chute, and the idea being the ramp will lead down to the top lip of the dust chute and allow the dust to naturally slide down the ramp and out the dust chute, obviously helped by the extractor. I've marked up the centre, pilot a hole through in a second, and then to help cut it I'm going to put it down on the floor. It's easier to push down. Use my not inconsiderable body weight to help me. And as you can see, I've got my favourite dust mask on, my t-shirt. You'll be amazed how often that gets used. Took a bit of time, but I've eventually got through. And I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going to hit it with a round over bit in my my handheld router. You can see the dust coming off that then. That's what this downdraft table is there for, because all that dust now is flying around in the air and it's not doing my lungs any good. So the downdraft will hopefully eliminate, probably not all of it, but certainly a little bit of it. So off of the chute back in again, and as you can see, I've got to just raise the bottom end up, or the back end up as you looked at it. So I'm marking that now, and marking where I want my pieces. So initially I was going to use these two pieces here, but in the end I decided to recut some slightly wider ones, just so they've got a bit more thickness to them. So I'm just currently searching for a scrap, and I found one. So I'm going to cut that down. The other ones would have been okay perhaps, but they were just a tiny bit too narrow. I was a bit concerned that my screws would break them out. I'm clamping them together. I've marked the bevel on the underneath, and I'm cutting them together so it's the same, and then offering that up, and then a few pilots and some 30mm screws, and I'm just dropping a little bit short at the end just so it doesn't split anything. Obviously same on the other side. I'm using a block as well, as you can see on the right hand side of the picture, just to make sure that it's flush with the bottom. And if I've measured correctly, it should allow for the dust to go down that panel, down the ramp, and out of the dust chute. A bit of a sand just to get it to fit. So I'm marking where the bevels finish, because I'm going to nail through them. I don't want those nails to hit the thinner part where the bevel is, because obviously they'll come out the other side. And then I had to go out and buy a cork gun because I didn't have a working one in the man cave. So I'm going to just give it a quick sand and then clean up and then blow it off. And then I'm going to cork all the way around all the edges of the ramp and up the corners as well. And this will just seal it, help get more of an airtight seal. And I'm being quite heavy-handed, not being particularly neat. I'd rather have a better seal. It's going to be painted after anyway, so it makes no odds. So I took the dust chute off quickly, and I'm just going to take it outside now and give the inside a good coat of paint, just to hopefully help the dust slide down a little bit easier instead of on the grain of the plywood. And then you'll see in a second all the inside nice and silver. So putting the top back on, and it's at this point that I realised that it wasn't square. Not quite sure what happened, but I fixed it anyway. So I'm marking now the 9mm in from the edge so that I hit the very centre of each of the sides and the ends. And I'm drilling with some pilot holes just to make it pretty. I'm measuring them properly. And then I'm using a clamp to pull it square now. And this took some doing, to be honest, but yeah, so I'm screwing one side perfectly straight and then using a clamp to then pull the other sides and square it all up. I'm screwing the top down so that if I ever do need to get it off to clear a blockage or do any work inside, I can. But yeah, this took some squaring up. Got there in the end. It's quite therapeutic doing all the screws in perfect increments. Haven't got much OCD, honest. So now I'm pulling the sides in, I believe, because it wasn't sitting quite straight. This is all this timber's quite old. It's been knocking around in the man cave for quite some time, so everything's a little bit bowed and warped and all those wonderful things that timber does. So with that done, I'm now going to move on to marking out for the MFT holes. Marking the centre there, putting a line in. I'm using one ruler that I've clamped down to then start the first row of holes. Now I ended up changing this later on because I realised that I wasn't going to sit central with my holes. I needed to actually work off the centre outwards. But thankfully realised this before I started drilling the big holes. So there's just a few pilot holes that you can see on it on the finished product. But I'm not going to worry about them. I could fill them if I wanted, but I can't be bothered. But yeah, it was at this point, I believe, that I worked it out. It was when I put the other side on and I realised it wasn't going to sit. So I had to go back and do it all again. Yeah, there's the puzzled face. Yeah. So yeah, marking up my lines now and doing it properly this time. And yeah, puzzled face again, I've got to work out how to do it. I worked out if I drop the pins in and then set the guide rail against that, it worked out perfect. Just dropped lucky on that one. So now I'm drilling the correct holes. And it's been a while since I've used this system, so it took me a while to fathom out how to use it again. It's been a year, I think, since I built my last table.
Figured out at the end it works on the, I think it's the, was it the 3-4-5 system or the 4-5-6? It's Pythagoras rule basically, and these path guide rails from um, Axminster supply them. I think the company's called Path Guide or UJK. I can't remember. But it's brilliant. It's 200 quid. It's not cheap, but it does the job. And literally, you just got to take your time and be accurate and consistent with your holes. Make sure your pins are in correctly. But essentially, once you've done a straight line and then your 90-degree line on the end, you can then use the same Pythagoras rule to then do your third line or your parallel line, as it were, and then your end line, and then you can join all the dots up then. Dead simple. So this is the jig then that you use to actually drill the holes. You can see the pins in the back of the hole where my hand was just. And where I'm putting my right hand now, there's the pins. And basically they locate down into the drilled pilots, and then the 20mm bit that's in the drill then actually drills the holes. And it is pretty accurate, really accurate, especially if if you take your time to make sure everything's located properly, you will get a very accurate grid system. Put your teeth in. Um, this this is moisture resistant MDF. That's why I chose it for the top. And I'll be honest, it's a ball ache to drill. There is a dust extraction piece that actually fits onto the side of this jig, which helps clear the. If you watch the correct videos, it's detritus, as the bloke keeps saying. Never heard that before I watched his videos, but yeah, it clears the all chip-ins and the dust and everything, and it helps to keep the end of the bit clean. Stops it clogging so much because I keep having to pull the bit out and clear the clogging off. But unfortunately, my Henry's broken at the minute, so I didn't have a Hoover that I could use. But yeah, this video is running at 10 times speed, so you can see how long this took me. It's not a quick process. Now, when you get to a section where you can't use the pins, you can then use the supplied bench dogs, which are those two silver dogs that I keep moving about, and then you change holes on the where you drill, and this allows you then to fill in the gaps. So now I'm going to use my hand router again to first bevel the edges, ease them off, and then I'm going to round over the tops of each of the holes. And this is because the other bench dogs that come with this system have a lip that stops it being pushed all the way through. You have to round the tops of these over, the holes, just so that lip sits down into the hole ever so slightly, and this stops it fouling on the timber, so that when you put timber against the dogs, that sits perfect. So I'm going to put the dust chute back on now and give it a test. So here's a piece of MDF and my 4-inch belt sander, and as you can see, it's not working very well at the minute. Tried it with a piece of oak and the same results. And so I decided that I needed some more holes. So I've decided to put some diagonal holes in. So I'm reusing the jig that I was using earlier. And as you can see, I can screw through where the pinholes were. And this will then give me an exact centre in between those existing holes. I can then use the ruler, which has offsets. So the standard spaces are 96mm, but then it also on each end and in the middle has a 48mm and a 32mm hole. So by using these, it's a 48 one I'm using, I can then use the ruler to mark all of the diagonal positions. I'm then going to end up with a few extra tiny little pilot holes in, but I'm not bothered, I could fill them if I wanted to. So I'll show you the first row just to see how I'm doing it. I've actually got the dust extractor on, and I'm trying to cover some of the holes to try and increase the suction and see if it'll actually pull away any of that dust. It did pull a bit of it away. It's not great still, but it's working. So we'll stop there and I'll skip then to the end. I'll skip to the end and I'm now drilling sideways, as you can see. It doesn't matter which way you do this as long as your holes are in the right position. And with all that finished, I'm then going to go over it now again with the router and round over all the holes that I've just drilled. So, time for another test. I've got a scrap piece of MDF here, and with the fan running, you can see that it is actually pulling a lot of that dust down. But unfortunately, it just can't keep up. The sheer power of this machine, the amount of dust it creates, is just ridiculous. So yeah, I'm starting to lose the will to live, but I'm not defeated. Let's try it on a bigger piece. So this is just a small palm router. I can't find the bag, hence why I've had to tape over the dust port. It did get rid of most of it, but it doesn't really create a lot of dust, that, to be fair. So now I'm going to try again covering some of the holes on the back. And as you can see, it is sucking it down. It is getting a lot of it. But as soon as I got past the sort of outer shell and onto the more fibrous part, it starts to get overwhelmed again. I mean, I've took a fair bit off that timber. It's quite a deep hole. So I've decided to drill yet more holes. So what I've decided to do is on this far end, above where the actual dust port is, I'm going to just fill out the entire grid. So basically I'm using the dogs. That's a close-up of the bit just to show you what it looks like. So I'm going to use the dogs again, and you literally just find the correct holes and locate it down, pop your drill on and fill in the holes. And all you've got to do is just select the correct drilling port. So there's obviously the one I'm in now, and then there's the one to the left. And when you use the system, it's self-explanatory. Well, there's two. But yeah, so I'll speed this up again. I'll just keep spinning it round. I did notice that when I'd got the two dogs right next to each other, which you'll see in a bit, there was a bit of wiggle on the jig. I don't know if that's because the holes aren't perfect, or that the jig has got some movement in it, which I wouldn't think it had. It's more likely to be that the holes have got just a tiny bit of wiggle. Again, this is quite difficult to drill this stuff, so yeah, here we go. So when I'm drilling now, there's a little bit of wiggle, so that's why I'm pushing down hard on the jig. But yeah, I'll skip to the end now. So I've got a solid grid now of 3 wide, the full width of the board. And I've got a large piece of MDF, and I've covered the back holes with a scrap bit of ply again. And adjust the camera just to give you a better look. The dust port's in the way, it's difficult to get a decent shot. And clean it up so you can see how much dust is made. So obviously the dust extractor's on, and as you can see, the bulk of that is getting sucked down those holes. Not a great deal. The main thing that it's doing is catching all of the very, very fine dust that sits up into the air. The heavier dust that drops down onto the table, I'm not all that worried about. So that's how I've got my dust extractor clicked at the moment. This is just temporary. I will eventually run that tube underneath the units and around. Now, just to show you how much it has collected and how much dust does get into the air and into the man cave, that was basically empty before I started. There wasn't a great deal in it at all. And you can see that's a fair bit of dust. It's definitely going to help protect my lungs. Every little bit counts, to be honest with this. Give it a good clean with no mask on. And clamp it back up.
So to summarise then, it's definitely worked. It's not the most powerful downdraft table you're ever going to get. The Clark extractors, they're okay, but they're never going to blow you away, as it were, or suck you away. But yeah, definitely covering the holes that you're not using certainly increases the suction, which is obvious. and putting in the extra row of holes, or filling out the grid on this end, definitely worked. I mean, that big belt sander, it creates just a monumental amount of dust. It's a beast of a bit of kit. I think it's 4 inches wide. I'm not sure how long the belt is, but I mean, if you don't secure down a piece of timber, it will literally shove it back at you. It'll launch it. I believe in America they actually race. Women sit on top of them, and kids, and they race these down custom-made tracks. That's how powerful they are. But anyway, so yeah, it creates an absolute ton of dust, and it was catching the bulk of it. It was only when I really got down into the actual fibres of that MDF that it started to struggle to keep up. But the main thing is it's catching the fine dust that goes into the air. The dust that lands on the table is heavy enough that I'm not going to worry too much about it, because if it's landing down, it's too heavy to be in the air and get in your lungs. That's my theory on it anyway. If you disagree with that, put a note down in the comments, and I'll ignore it. Anyway, so yeah, I'm pleased how that's turned out. It's cost me nothing. The funnel that I put on the end, the ducting funnel, I've got laying around. I don't think they're that expensive. Even if you want to buy one for a specific project, they're probably £5 to £10, probably not even that much, I'm not sure. The MDF was all spare, all left over from jobs, just taking up room. The spray paint, that was also just something I got lying around, and the duct, the duct obviously I'd already got from previous ducting systems that I've done. It was left over, and what I will probably do is eventually I'll run a duct with a blast gate somewhere, but I'll run it all the way underneath the back of all these units, behind the fridge, etc., and bring it out somewhere here, so I'm not going to step over it each time I use it. But yeah, it's a good bit of kit, and also the MFT functionality of it. Really, it's a good bit of kit. This MFT stuff is brilliant. These, it's the I forgot what it's called. What's it called? I forgot. Hang on. Path guide system. The path guide system, made and sold by Axminster. It's brilliant. Really is a good bit of kit. It's incredibly accurate. It's £200 now for the second version of it, but you can obviously make an infinite number of tables with that. The only bit that you probably ever really need to change would be the drill bit that actually does the 20mm dog holes, and they're not. I don't think they're that expensive. Again, I think they're somewhere between £10 and £20. If you replace it once a year, it's no great, no great burden. I probably will paint the whole thing up eventually, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know if the paint will just scuff on top. I have also got some Acrovin. I could glue that to the top and then recut the holes, or router the holes out. I'm not sure. I might do that. Possibly, maybe. Oh, I've got some laminate as well. I've got some laminate upstairs that would go on top of that brilliantly. I literally just need to use a flush trim router to trace each hole. It wouldn't take long at all. So yeah, I've enjoyed that. Good little project, and hopefully it'll keep the dust down in man cave. Hopefully not wreck my lungs earlier than I need to, because you only get one pair of lungs, guys. So yeah, so guys, that's it from me. Thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe. Maybe consider watching some of my other videos that will be coming up shortly. I'm doing one that will be filmed soon. I've done a prototype of an electrical, what do they call them? They're called power banks. Jackery is one of the main companies that seem to be doing a load of them now. They're all over the American YouTubers channels. This is just a temporary box because it's all smashed up. But I'm getting a new one of these hopefully soon, and then I'm going to refit all the electrics properly into that with some additions to what's there now, and that'll be a video coming up soon. It'll be an interesting one if you're into electronics. So goodbye from me, guys, and I will see you on the next one. Bye for now.